Hello, I'm Sensei Alex Kikuya. Thanks for joining me this evening for meditation and sutra study. This evening's practice will consist of a 15-minute guided meditation, a reading from Buddhist scripture, followed by a Dharma Talk. The title of today's Dharma Talk is Enjoying Our Ugly Spiritual Practice. Before we get into that, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post talks in the future. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that'd be great too. Now as we move into our guided meditation, I'll give you a moment to get into position. The only rules are you need to be in a position that you can hold for at least 15 minutes without moving. If you want to lie down, that's fine. I only ask that you not fall asleep. If you'd like some instruction, what I like to do is sit cross-legged either on the floor or on a cushion. Back straight, chin slightly tucked. Eyes can be opened or closed. If you want to keep them open, that's fine. Just keep them pointed downwards at a 45-degree angle to eliminate visual distractions. Left hand goes palm up in the lap. Right hand goes palm up over the left in the meditation mudra. And we begin by focusing on the breath. Breathing in and out through the nose. With every inhale, we poke our belly button out slightly like we had a large meal. And we relax on the exhale. Breathing in this way engages the parasympathetic portion of our nervous system. It tells our body that we're safe, that we can relax. As we breathe, we may wonder what to do with our mind. And if our mind wanders, that's fine. We simply say hello to our thoughts and bring our focus back to the physical sensations of our breathing. The feeling of air moving in and out of our throat. The feeling of our belly button moving forward and back. The feeling of our clothing against our skin. We'll breathe in this way for about 2 minutes. Wonderful. Now we'll begin the visualization part of the meditation. Visualizing a campfire burning in our belly, in the space behind our belly button. This fire burns and it's our favorite color. If we like red, the fire is red. If we like green, the fire is green. And as this fire burns, we bring our focus to the embers at the bottom of the flame. With every inhale, we see ourselves bringing air into our lungs, breathing in through our nose. With every exhale, we breathe out through our nose and we visualize ourselves blowing on those embers, feeding them oxygen, making the fire bigger and brighter with every breath. We'll breathe in this way for about 2 minutes. And if our mind wanders, that's okay. We just say hello to our thoughts and bring our focus back to our breathing and the visualization. Good job. Keep breathing. Now we'll send a channel of energy down from our belly to the center of the earth. And once we get there, we'll find an energy that's identical to our own. If the fire in our belly is blue, the earth's energy is blue. If the fire in our belly is red, the earth's energy is red. And as we continue breathing in and out through the nose, with every inhale, we visualize energy coming up from the earth, blending with the fire in our belly. With every exhale, we blow on the embers of that fire, making them bigger and brighter with every breath. This fire represents our own enlightened nature. And we are feeding our nature both with our breathing and with the power of the earth, just like Buddha did 2,600 years ago. We'll breathe in this way for about 2 minutes. I'll keep time. Wonderful. Now we'll continue with the visualization by sending a second channel of energy up to the top of our head. With every inhale, we'll pull energy up from the earth, storing it in our belly, blending it with the fire of our own enlightened nature. With every exhale, we'll push that energy up the top of our heads until it explodes like a volcano, showering every inch of us in healing spiritual light. We breathe in and we pull energy up from the earth. We breathe out, we push that energy up out of the top of our heads until it covers our body in spiritual light. We had a challenging week, and this is our chance to send healing wherever it's needed. We'll breathe in this way for about a minute. I'll keep time, and if our mind wanders, that's okay. We say hello to our thoughts and bring our focus back to our breathing and the visualization. Great work. Everyone's sitting so quietly and so still, supporting each other in their spiritual practice. But now it's time to bring our meditation to a close. And we'll begin that process by closing the channel of energy that's going to the top of our head, pushing it down until it stops right where it started in our belly. Next, we'll send our focus to the channel of energy going to the center of the earth, pulling it back up into our belly. As we do this, maybe we give a silent bow, thanking the earth for helping us in our practice. Finally, we focus on the campfire in our belly, which represents our spiritual power, our enlightened nature. Reminding ourselves that we can call on this energy anytime it's needed, and that we've recharged it for the week to come. But for now, it's time to bring that visualization to a close, so we allow it to fade. And we come back into our bodies by moving our heads to the left and then to the right, back and forth, feeling the physical sensations in our neck we come back to center and we rotate our shoulders forward. And back. Feeling the physical sensations, the movement of our muscles, our clothing against our skin, until finally our shoulders hang towards the floor. And if our eyes are closed, we open them. I'll give you about 10 seconds to do that. Thanks so much for doing that practice with me. Meditation is very important, but it's even more important and more powerful, in my opinion, when you do it with others. So I appreciate that. We'll now move into the Sutra reading for this evening. Tonight's reading comes from the Abhidharmasamucayya, also known as the Compendium of the Higher Teaching. Not necessary to have a copy of the text, but it's useful if you'd like to follow along. Tonight's reading comes from page 113. And it goes as follows. Which are favorable? They are the 10 kinds of favorable actions. Abstention from the destruction of life, abstention from theft, abstention from sensuality, abstention from lying, abstention from slander, abstention from harsh speech, abstention from idle talk, absence of excessive avarice, absence of ill will, right views. Furthermore, the destruction of life, etc., have 5 conditions: object, intention, application, defilement, and accomplishment. The sutra mentions volitional action, which are volitional actions. They are volitional action occasioned by another's order, volitional action occasioned by another's suggestion, volitional action performed without knowing right and wrong, volitional action performed under the influence of bad roots, volitional action occasioned by perverse views. Among these 5, if one of the last 2 volitional actions under the influence of bad roots or perverse views is performed or acquired, its result will necessarily be experienced. Performed means produced by conduct. Acquired means assembled by the residues. Actions whose results are determined are mentioned in the sutra. Which are determined actions? Determining an act by action, determining the experience of results, and determining the occasions. The results of fruition of the 10 kinds of unfavorable actions are produced in the 3 bad destinies. The results of the weak, middling, and strong actions are produced respectively in the realms of animals, ghosts, and the hells. Their secondary results, separately and appropriately, are dangers that threaten the person and things pertaining to him. In those who are born among human beings, their predominant results, separately and appropriately, are dangers that threaten external things. So tonight, we're going to focus on a very specific type of action, and that's action as it relates to our spiritual practice. But before we get into that, I want to tell you a little story about what's happening with me here on the homestead. And I promise it has to do with the reading for tonight. Up until a few weeks ago, we have been having a fairly mild winter, no real snow to speak of. And then it seems like someone flipped a switch, and now we get a few more inches every day. And I'm spending more and more time shoveling the driveway and doing other things related to the snow. Today, we're getting a mix of rain and snow, which makes going outdoors even more treacherous. It's one thing when you have to deal with the snow, but then when you have to deal with the ice that comes from the rain falling and freezing, well, things get a little tricky. And it makes doing chores around the homestead even more important because the dangers that occur if we don't do these chores, these favorable actions, are even more adept, even more harmful. So I've been doing some of the typical things, putting extra food in the bird feeders, for example, for the wild birds and the squirrels, and we have a groundhog on the property who also eats from the seeds in the bird feeder. The birds and the squirrels fight over it, and then he eats whatever falls on the ground. I'm putting salt down to ensure no one slips on the ice as they're walking around the property. And I'm also spending extra time tending to our chickens who have absolutely no respect for inclement weather. They have a coop that is warm and dry and weatherproof. I know I've checked it numerous times, but they like to be outside. And I swear the worse the weather gets, the more they like it. And, that's fine. I want them to enjoy their lives, and it's actually not that big a deal. So, chickens, along with other livestock, they're adapted to living outside. As long as you're keeping them dry, and as long as you're keeping them out of the wind, their feathers do the job of keeping them warm. So it's not the temperature so much you have to worry about, it's the wind and it's the rain. Which is why this mix we're getting today of rain and snow is so dangerous. Because for whatever reason, they like to go out in the rain, and my concern is that they'll go out in the rain, they'll get wet, then the temperature will drop this evening and they'll freeze, and then I won't have any more chickens. And of course, no one wants that, so I spent some time today and yesterday weatherproofing their chicken run, even more than it's already been weatherproofed. I scooped out all the wet and dirty bedding. I replaced it with dry bedding made out of pine shavings, so they'll have something warm to snuggle into. I've also put some tarps over their chicken run. So when we first got the chickens, we bought a coop. I think we went to Tractor Supply, but I could be misremembering that. And it came in 3 boxes, and you put it together, and it's very good. It's functional. It's like something you'd get out of a catalog, right? But it became clear to me as they were growing that they would probably want more space than just what they had with the coop. So I built a chicken run for them. And I did that with chain link fencing, and then also some garden posts. So if you can imagine, there's the chicken coop here, and there's the door that they can go outside. And then I put the garden post in a large rectangle in front of that, close that in with chain link. So it's basically a fenced-in yard that they can run around in. Then I found out that chickens get eaten by hawks quite a bit. So there's some aerial predators to worry about. There's also raccoons and weasels that also like to eat chickens, and they can both scale a chain link fence or crawl through it fairly easily. So around the chain link fence, there's chicken wire to provide additional protection. The chicken wire also goes over the top of the run as well. So it's completely enclosed, right? Kind of a Fort Knox situation. The problem there, however, was the chicken wire in the middle would bow down a little bit, which didn't matter to the chickens. They're about a foot tall, but me, I'm 6'3", 200 pounds, so it's kind of hard to move around in there when the chicken wire is hanging low to the ground. So I put some tall 6-foot stakes in there to hold it up, right? So now we have the chicken wire going over the top, and we have these stakes, 3 in the middle of the run. The chickens like it. It gives them something to perch on. I like it. I can walk a little bit more easily inside, but now the chicken wire goes up and down, kind of like a house. And that was fine until this mix of rain and snow started to occur. So now I have tarps over the run as well. And the tarps they had at the hardware store, they didn't have 2 of the same color. So one's green and one's black. And that went over the run. And it created an environment where it can rain all at once. But at least for part of the run, the rain won't get down into it. So the chickens can go out there and stay dry, is the point. And of course, if they're dry, then they're safe when the temperature drops below freezing. So I'm out there working and I'm doing my thing and just enjoying being outside. And then I stop and I take kind of a good look at what the chicken coop and the chicken run have become over the past year. And I realized it no longer looks like something you could put in a catalog. That perfect aesthetic that I had when it was just the coop itself come right out of the box is gone. There's chain link, and there's chicken wire, and there's posts in the middle, and there's tarps going over the run, and all kinds of craziness. And for a while, my mind did what minds do, and I started thinking about, this doesn't look very pretty. How can I fix this? And how can I change that? And then I looked at the chickens. And the chickens are warm, and they're dry, and they're safe from predators, and they clearly do not care what the chicken run looks like or what the coop looks like. They don't care. They want food, they want water, they want safety. The run and the coop provide all 3 of those things, so the chickens are happy. All the problems I was creating in my mind about the aesthetics of the coop and the run was exactly that. Problems I created in my own mind. Because I'm human, and humans do silly things. But it occurred to me while I was out there that when we talk about our spiritual practice, we do the exact same thing. We think that our spirituality should look just like the catalog. We read books about spiritual masters disappearing into the woods for years on end, living in caves or in huts. We see Instagram posts of spiritual entrepreneurs meditating on a booch in their Lululemon, stretching into all kinds of interesting yoga/acrobatic poses. And we think our spirituality should look like theirs. More than that, we feel like we're failing if it doesn't. Now, just to make sure I wasn't, making things up in my mind in regards to the coop and the run, I went and I talked to some of my neighbors. I live in the country. Everyone has chickens in their backyards. And I took a look at some of their coops and some of their runs. Turns out none of them looked like the catalog either. Some of them have barns, and the chickens don't go outside. They just live in the barn full time, and they're up in the rafters or they're down in the hay. Others have a coop and a run that's more or less similar to mine. Other people have turned sheds into coops, and they've just piled up hay inside, and there's electric fencing that goes out for the run. Nobody's chicken coop or run looks like the catalog. So my story that my coop and my run need to look a specific way was wrong. It was made up. And when I looked at the Buddhist scriptures, and I looked at how the patriarchs and the matriarchs had practiced going back all the way to the time of Buddha, 2,600 years ago, what I found was many of them, their spiritual practice didn't look like the catalog either. I don't think Wei Nong would do well on Instagram. I don't think Layman Pang would have a very interesting Facebook page. But we fall into this trap of comparing our spirituality to others, and as a result, we get down on ourselves. So much so that maybe we just don't want to practice at all because, well, if I can't do it right, I don't want to do it at all. And this is especially a problem in the West when we're exposed to so much information, so much social media, so many opportunities to compare ourselves to others. Maybe we sit on a pillow because we don't have a cushion, or maybe we've never gone on a long retreat because we can't take time away from our family. Maybe our spiritual practice is quote unquote ugly compared to what we think it should look like when we look at what we see online. But what we have to remember is that many of these people who have these idealized spiritual practice, they have lives of great privilege. I have a bit of insider knowledge here. I'm a Buddhist teacher, I'm a spiritual teacher, and I interact and talk to other people who are also spiritual teachers, and a lot of them have spouses that have high-paying jobs that allow them, the teacher, to go on 3-month retreats in India or Japan, to take long sabbaticals because they have money from a separate source coming into the household. Many of them have parents that can send them money if they want to spend 3 years in India. And then they can go and work for an aunt or an uncle if they need a job, so they don't have to build a resume like some of us have to do. And I'm not saying this to denigrate anyone. I'm saying it simply to get you to understand how unnecessary it is to compare ourselves to others. Because oftentimes we don't have the whole story. Oftentimes what we see on social media, what we read in books is not the complete picture. So we create this idealized view of what spirituality should look like, and then we feel like failures if we don't match up with that. But what the reading from tonight was trying to get us to realize, what I'm trying to get you to realize, is that favorable action is favorable action, regardless of how it looks to others, regardless of how it looks to us, even. So the last thing we should be looking at in terms of our spiritual practice is, well, what's everyone else doing? Again, going back to the chickens in the coop. If they're warm, if they're dry, if they're safe, if they have food and water, they don't care what it looks like. And that is the same mindset that we should have when we're figuring out what our own personal practice should look like. And there's backing for this in the Buddhist scriptures. This is why Sutra study is so important. For example, if you look at the Mahayana Sutras, especially. The bodhisattvas all have kind of strange sounding names. So there's bodhisattva practicing non-defilement in the realm of Mara. There's bodhisattva resolute mind. They don't exactly roll off the tongue. But the purpose is that the Buddha, in his wisdom and his compassion, is trying to get us to understand that these bodhisattvas, their names, mirror their practice. So bodhisattva practicing non-defilement in the realm of Mara is a bodhisattva who lives in the realm of Mara, but is still practicing non-defilement. He is still walking the way. Bodhisattva resolute mind is a bodhisattva who, you guessed it, has a resolute mind, who is 100% determined and focused to walk the path towards awakening. Now this is interesting because we have all of these bodhisattvas who are supposed to be our example, and yet none of them are the same. They're all different, with different life circumstances and different practices and different ways of being in the world, and yet they are all correct according to the Dharma. There are 84,000 paths that lead to the other shore. So there's lots of play, lots of wiggle room here. We also see this example in the Vimalakirti Sutra. So many bodhisattvas show up in Vimalakirti's house, and they all have different pure lands and different practices. There's the Tathagata of wonderful fragrances, who uses food and fragrances to help his people realize enlightenment. In my head, I picture him as a giant ant, because ants use food and fragrances to run their ant hives. There's Tathagata of wonderful adornment, who uses beautiful things like jewelry. And people are so wowed by the jewels in his realm that beauty helps them realize enlightenment. Again, so many different bodhisattvas, so many different spiritual paths. And what this suggests to me is that all beings are Buddhas, but not all I ruined that. All beings are Buddhas, but not all Buddhas are the same. We all walk the path of Dharma, but not all of us walk the same. Now that said, there is a danger here. We can't think that this is sort of a anything goes situation. There is correct and incorrect Dharma practice, just like there is right and wrong in anything else. So how do we know if our spiritual practice is correct? Well, first off, we look at the sutras. Is it backed by doctrine? And again, there's lots of wiggle room here. 84,000 paths that lead to the other shore. So maybe we practice silent illumination, which is taught in Zen. Maybe we practice focusing on bodily sensations, which is taught in Vipassana. Maybe we chant Nembutsu, Namu Amida Butsu, which we find both in the Pratipana Sutra and in the larger and smaller Pure Land Sutras. Maybe we practice visualizations as found in the Contemplation Sutra. Maybe we work to make every moment of daily life spiritual practice by constantly doing things for the betterment of others, which is a practice we find in the Shurangama Samadhi Sutra. There are many practices in the scripture. What we need to do is simply read those scriptures, as we do every Wednesday, and find the practice that accords best with us and our personal life circumstances. Which brings us to the next object of us figuring out if what we're doing is correct. Can we do it every day? Silent illumination is a wonderful, powerful practice. But if our life circumstances are such that sitting on the cushion without moving is somewhat impossible for us, then it's not the right practice for us. Because consistency is key. Right? If we're washing dishes, it's better to wash dishes every day than to do it once a year or once a month. So we need to find a practice that's both doctrinally correct, meaning we find it in the scripture, but it's also something we can do every day. I have a friend of mine, she has a toddler, and she's a military wife, so her life is very hectic. For her, sitting meditation is difficult, because if she sits on the cushion without moving, closes her eyes, there's a good chance her 2-year-old is going to jump off the couch head first, because 2-year-olds do things like that. So her practice is chanting Namu Amida Butsu. And she chants while she's changing diapers, she chants while she's washing dishes, she chants while she's driving to and from the base. And as she's doing this, she's making time for her spiritual practice. She also does a daily offering. She lights a candle for the Buddha on her altar. It takes about 30 seconds. Light the candle, bow. Very powerful, wonderful practice. I have another friend who loves sitting meditation, just absolutely loves it. And he doesn't like to be overly stimulated. So chanting just grinds his gears, and he's a very logical, very facts-oriented person, so visualizations don't really work for him. But sitting in silence, that silent illumination practice we find in Zen, he can't get enough of it. Again, very powerful, very important. Can we do it every day? And the final thing we have to ask ourselves is it working? Is it helping us remove our defilements? Just like with the chicken coop. Are they warm? Are they dry? Are they safe? Do they have food? Do they have water? Is our practice making us less angry? Is it making us kinder? Is it making us more generous? Is it helping us be calm? Now, this is something we have to kind of play by ear, because there's not always immediate results with spirituality. It takes time to settle into our bones. Right? If we sit on the cushion and think we're going to be a fully awakened bodhisattva immediately, well, we're setting ourselves up for failure. But if we sit on the cushion or we do some chanting, and by the time we're finished, I'm still a little upset, but I feel better than I did before. I was very frazzled before I made my offerings, but now I'm a little bit more focused. Things don't look so severe. We can ask ourselves those questions, and if the answer is yes, then that's another idea, another feather in the cap that would suggest our spiritual practice is correct for us. So to review, if we want to figure out what's the correct spiritual practice, we ask ourselves 3 questions. Is it backed by doctrine? Is it helping us remove our defilements? And can we do it every day? If those 3 things are correct, it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. It doesn't matter what our practice looks like compared to other people. If those 3 things are correct, then we are on the right path for us. Now that said, when we go to the Buddhist temple, things are going to be a little different. We do something called corporate worship in the religious space, meaning that it's kind of a one-size-fits-all modus operandi. You probably noticed this in our Wednesday sessions. We do meditation, we do Sutra study, we do a Dharma Talk, and I receive messages from people sometimes that, I love your Dharma Talks, but, people can meditate on their own. I love the meditation, but half the time I don't know what you're saying when you do the scripture reading. Just give us the link and, go straight into the talk. And as a teacher, I figure if no one is 100% happy, I'm probably doing something right. Because the goal in the temple, in the meditation hall, is to give you a taste of everything. And then in your own practice, your own spirituality, you can figure out what works best. When we do the guided meditation, I struggle with the visualization, but that first 2 minutes when we're just focusing on the breath, it's great. So I'm just going to do that part. I love the visualization exercise, but I've never been very academically oriented. Reading scriptures just doesn't do it for me, so I'm just going to focus on the visualization. Also good. I'm just super busy. I don't have time for anything but listening to a Dharma Talk in the background on my way to work or while I'm washing dishes gives me what I need for the day. Also fine. Use your own mind, your own discernment to figure out what spirituality looks for you. And as you continue to walk the path, you'll realize, without even trying, you've ended up exactly where you wanted to go. Amitabha. So, that's the talk for today. I hope it was helpful. I'll just end with a few announcements. So, this is Meditation and Sutra Study. It happens every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, broadcast from this channel. So, if you enjoyed this evening's practice, please make sure you hit the like button. Also, subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way, you'll be notified when we practice in the future. On Sundays, we do something a little bit different. That's Dharma Sunday. It's a little less involved. It's me taking some topic from the news or pop culture and giving a Dharma talk on it, speaking on it from a Buddhist perspective. So taking canonical Buddhist teachings and tying them with daily life. Again, that's at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, also broadcast here at this channel. So I hope to see you there. Until next time, Amitabha.